Good day, grade 9. Today is our MAPEH 9 in 4th quarter, week 5. My name is Winaldo B. Malimban. Last time we talked about the essence of the substance use and abuse, all about drugs. And particularly, we continue our lesson discussion about drugs. In week 5, the psychoactive drugs, today's objectives is how the student to explain or how the psychoactive drug affect the body and what are some least 3 different club drugs and explain how they affect the body and explain how the hallucinogens affect the body. Let's move on our topic today, the substance use and abuse, part 2, psychoactive. Now, what is psychoactive? Based from the research, psychoactive drugs are mood-altering or stimulants that affect the nervous system in a different ways and produce the variety of pleasurable feelings. So such the mind effecting of psychoactive drugs are dispensed only under doctor's guidance because they may cause addictions due to the body's continued need. So these are the stimulants that are prescribed by the doctors to stimulate the nervous system. Psychoactive, also called the psychotropic, is a term that is applied in chemical substances that change for the person's mental state by affecting the way the brain and the nervous system. This can be lead to the expectations, which is often the main reason people choose to take the psychoactive drugs. Another one is, what is a psychoactive drug? In a drug that affects the brain, and what are some illegal drugs? A drug whose productions or use is prohibited by the strictly controlled by the prescription. And what are the controlled of substances? A drug or chemical whose are manufactured by positions or use or regulated by the government and under the legislative control, and they may include the illegal drugs and prescription of medications. In psychoactive drugs, classified are the depressants, the stimulants, the hallucinogens, inhalants, and the narcotics. In depressants, that can lower person activities, slowing him down and sometimes causing of sleep. It also caused by the drunkenness and the pupil of the eyes becomes small. Severe withdrawals syndrome causes coma and even death. Popular names of depressants are snow, junk, smack, or heroin, cough medicine, cocaine, sleeping pills, dolls, barbiturates, downers, tranquilizer, drink, both of alcohol. Depressants are widely used throughout the world as prescriptions of medicines and as illicit of substances. When these are used, effects often include the pain, relief, sedations, and cognitive impairment, as well as in some instances of euphoria, muscles relaxations, and lowered blood pressure of heart rate, respiratory dysfunction, and anticonvulsant effects, and even complete of anesthesia or death at high doses. Next is the tranquilizer, one of the depressants. When taken in small amount of calm a person. Next is the barbiturates. Sometimes are given to the people with sleeping trouble to make them relax. Also include the depressant is the Hypnotics. This is the ideal that produce drowsiness and encourage the onset of normal sleep. So how to taken? Depressants may be injected, swallowed, or drunk. Now some of the side effects of hypnotics are headache, nausea, weakness, insomnia, chest pains, and depression. Next is part of the psychoactive is the stimulants. It might be in addiction, abuse, and also the treatment options. Stimulants is the type of the drug that also called the upper or pep pills because it makes a person more active by giving the feeling of boundless energy but causes a person to use energy faster. A stimulant causes that body to move and work fast. It increases the heartbeat, causing high blood pressures and leading to the damage of the brain due to the hemorrhage. These are some types of the stimulant drugs. In legal, we have the caffeine, nicotine, weight loss pills, energy drinks, prescriptions of amphetamines and used to treat the AD or ADHD or Adderall. In illegal, we have the cocaine, the crack cocaine, the methamphetamines, and crystal meth and ecstasy. Again, in the stimulant is a class of the drugs that speed up the message between the brain and the body. They can make a person feel more awake, alert in any drugs that excites any bodily functions, but more on specifically those that stimulate the brain and central nervous system. In the paranoia is a condition in which the patient believes that everybody is out to get him, or thus he becomes violent. Popular names of stimulants are the pills, upper, speed, meth, or also include the coke, snow, and lady cocaine. So some drugs users feels they are very strong or think they are Superman or Batman. But this paranoia is a feeling that you are being threatened in some way, such as people watching you or acting against you even though there's no proof that is true. It happens to a lot of people at some point, even when you know that you are concerned aren't based in the reality. They can be the troubling if they happen to offend. Next is the hallucinogens. So these drugs are able to change the way in which as individual may sense of understand his surroundings. So this is caused by the hallucinations, old language and behavior, suicidal attitudes and attempts. Its popular names are the lysergic acid or LSD, the diethyl bromide and cactus peyote or mescaline, mushroom by psilocybin, ecstasy of MDMA or ethylene doxymethylamphetamine. So how can you take in that one? Hallucinogens are swallowed as pills, capsules, or liquids injected of what? The smoke. Another area of the LSD is about the psychoactive in the hallucinogens. These drugs that are widely used around the world, most with alarming and dangerous side effects. Its popular names, as I said, by lysergic acid or LSD and diethyl bromide, so on and so forth. And these other parts of LSD high In psychological effects, the hallucination is that one. The sensory distortions, the paranoia, the Apopriance. In extreme use, we have the psychological addictions, the psychosis, flashbacks, depressions. Is also the physical effects are sweating, increased heart rate, increased body temperature, and dehydration. Also, common side effect of LSD is the dramatic change of sensations and feelings, altered sense of self, swaying rapidly from the emotion to another, or it might be in feeling several of different emotions at once, altered sense of time, and also the crossover sense of synesthesia. So this is what you call the common side effect of LSD or the hallucinations. Hallucinogen use can cause panic attack that include of the symptom. Next is the Apopriance. Drugs that gave the feeling of the gagacity of or illusions. Sensations are enhanced and inhibitations lowered. Popular names are pot, wet, grass, joint, reefers, or it might be in marijuana hasses. So in Epiora gives a feeling of the gagacity or user are always be happy. How to take in? Is usually by Apopriance are smoke and cigarettes and pipes. Next is the Inhalants. So inhalants are drugs that contain the volatile substances which drugs abusers use to give feeling of gaiety. These are inhalants include paint, varnish, gasoline, and lacquer thinner. Inhalants, drugs that produce vapors that cause of psychoactive effects when inhaled or sniffed. Example, model of airplane, glue, gasoline, paint, thinner, transmission of fluid, lighter fluid, liquid shoe polish, and fingernail polish remover. Potential side effects are the gastroenteritis, depressed muscle tone, damage to the liver and kidneys, nervous system dysfunctions, and bone marrow disorders. Inhalants also cheaper than other drugs. So this is the reason why teenagers commonly use them. Inhalants are very easy to buy since they are used in household such as glue, paint, and thinner. And inhalants, like other psychoactive drugs, gives off chemical vapors that can be inhaled into the lungs, which affect the brain reactions. Now, what are the symptoms and effect of inhalants? So the effects of inhalants are similar to that of alcohol, including the slurred speech, lack of coordination, euphoria, and dizziness. Inhalant abusers may be also experience lightheadedness, hallucinations, and delusions. The fumes of inhalants enters the lungs and is absorbed in the bloodstream. Initially, the effect of inhalants is like those felt by liquor drinker. The sniffer is cheerful and feels less of tense and anxious. Prolonged uses will cause of sniffer to walk clumsily and loss of balance, are difficult in speaking clearly because numb and sleepy. Upon the waking up, forgets everything that happened during his sleeping session. So the immediate effects of inhalants abuse is physical injury or even death. So these are some types in inhalants. By the liquids, paint thinner, paint remover, dry cleaning fluids, gasoline, glues, correction fluids, Feltis marker. The aerosols also spray, paints, deodorant, hair sprays, vegetable oil sprays, fabric protector spray. In gases, we have the chloroform, nitrous oxide, whipped cream cans, butane lighters, propane tanks, and refrigerants. It treats also the leader, cleaner, room deodorizer, and food preservations. Next is the narcotics. Narcotics are drugs that relieve pain and often induce sleep. These include such drugs of morphine, codeine, and heroin, all of which are not be made from opium nor scientifically produced substance like it. They are also known as the opiates and as hard drugs. In narcotic, the word narcotic comes from the Greek word of narcos, meaning sleep. Therefore, narcotics are drugs that induce sleep, specifically that means of substances such as heroin, morphine, and related drugs. What is the important to this note? Cocaine and meth are not narcotics, but they are stimulants, the exact opposite of the narcotics. They cause people to more awake and more active, not sleepy. Calling them narcotics make as much sense as calling coffee and narcotic. What are some basic concepts of drug abuse? In drug abuse is the deliberate taking of substances that will be result to damage the man's health or his ability to functions. So these drugs are especially referred to as mood-altering substances. That's known as the psychoactive drugs. We have the drugs dependence, drug addictions or physical depressions, psychological dependence, and drugs habituations. In drug abuse is the use of substance for non-medical purposes, but in abuse leads to organs damage like brain damage and liver damage, addiction, and troubled behavioral patterns. In a drug dependence, the dependence is defined as a compulsive craving that develops as a result of repeated administrations of the drug. Dependence occurs with a wide range of psychotropic drugs acting by many different mechanisms. The common feature of dependence producing drugs that they have positive reinforcing actions or reward associated with the activations of the mesolytic dopaminergic and pathway. Another from the drug dependence is the situations or the conditions a person finds himself and when he uses or abuses a drug to the point that the drug becomes his main and interest in his life. So drugs dependence may be physical or psychological or both. In the drug addictions, in drug addictions, that abuse is chronic of habitual use of any chemical substance to alter states of the body or mind for other than medically warranted purposes by physical dependence and withdrawal. In addictions, compulsive nature of the drug use despite physical and or psychological harm to the user and the society, and includes both licit and illicit drugs. Substance abuse frequently use the broad range of substances, including alcohol and inhalants, that can be fit the addictive profile. In drug addiction means continued use of substances for the purpose of other than food the amount to the addiction. In the psychological dependence for drug addictions, it is certain of psychoactive drugs cause of a change to the body chemistry. When taken frequently in large doses over the period of time, it refers also the needs that user may psychologically feel for the continued use of the drug to experience its psychoactive effects that may feel that they need it in order to function properly in life. Why? Because the body begins to need it as much as it needs food. However, these kinds of to lead to drug addiction. However, not all drugs abusers are drug addicts. Next is the drug tolerance and polydrug abuses. In the drug tolerance, the regular use of drugs increase the tolerance of the body so that the user keeps getting the desired effects of the drug. In the tolerance dependence addictions, our body develops tolerance to a drug's effects so that an increased amount of the drug is required to the produce effect. In the dependence is to supply the drug removed, then the person will exhibit withdrawal symptoms. In the addiction also, the continuing compulsive nature of the drug use despite physical and or psychological harm to the user and society. But rather, in the polydrug abuse, some people are not satisfied with only one kind of the drug. They also alcohol, cocaine, marijuana, and the tranquilizers. So this abuse of drugs has a series of consequences that may include coma and even death. So the drug abuser, I have the right to punish you. How can you to tell that one? Or how can you to tell one? It is difficult to come up with an accurate profile of the drug user, but there are certain characteristics which could indicate that a person is a drug trouble. So how to tell? One, to take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself if you want to be able to help your family member. Be educated on addiction. Read about the disease of addictions online and go to an Al-Anon meeting. In a ditch in the ego, resentments lead to ego and attitude is important to put aside before you talking to them and be empathetic. Try to understand that they are likely ashamed and embarrassed already. Adopt empathy. In the subtle symptoms, we have the secrecy. A drug abuser tends to become secretive, increasing also the isolation, change in attitude, change in friends' activities, appearance and interest, neglect in studies, and change in behavior. While in not so subtle symptoms, we have extremely sad and feeling despair, sometimes accompanied by the long hours of sleep, increased unexplained absenteeism, money problems, extreme loss or gain in weight, long periods in the bathroom, acting poorly, offensive behavior and appearance of older friends. So that is not so subtle symptoms. In the surefire indicators, we have to present the position of drugs and drug paraphernalia, needle marks on the arms, mention of suicide, bloodshot eyes or red, irritated watery eyes, dilated or pinpoint eye pupils, glow snapping, puppy or dumpy eyelids, red roll nostril, sniffing cocaine, runny nose of heroin or morphine or codeine, constant licking of lips to keep them moist, and also the profuse of perspirations and body odor. So the feeling of grades and absenteeism without sickness could be due to drug addictions. So take note of that, no? So are you aware for that, students? That if teenagers always in need of money for unknown reason, he may taking a drug, or maybe addicts act poorly because of the effects of the drug. So a drug can be interact with other substances, even food. Why? Because this effect means that we are two or more drugs that take into your body at the same time. That effect can be greater than those of any single. For example, present drug can be fatal when taken together. So take note of that. Why do people use this drug? So these drug abusers use drugs to change the way they feel instead of learning, to change themselves through constructive activities. So these are some reason why people, especially teenagers, students, abuse drugs. We have the pleasure, think better, be more popular, peer pressure, stay more active, become better athletes, curiosity, invincibility that will never happen to me, gain attention from parents, depressed, think that drugs will help them escape their problems, or the fear of pressure, the boredom, express of dissatisfactions, mental adventure, relaxation, keep alertness, have fun, socialization, escape reality, and all. So that is why some people use drugs. In preventing a drug relapse, following in aftercare treatment plan, participating in a 12 steps program, identifying and avoiding triggers, building a strong support system, and forming new coping and mechanism. In the government agencies involved in the prevention and control of drug abuse. So among the government agencies involved in the control of drug abuse we have the Dangerous Drug Board or DDB. Also include the Philippine National Police or PNP, and National Bureau of Investigation or NBI, the Department of Education of DepEd, the Department of Health, DOH, the NBI Treatment of Rehabilitation, Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, and the Philippine Mental Health Association or the PMHA. So, the Philippine government imposed the steep penalty on drugs pushers and drug traffickers as mandated by the RA 9165 or 9165 of Comprehensive Dangerous Drugs Acts of 2002, Republic Act 9165, an act instituting the Comprehensive Dangerous Drug Act since 2002, repealing Republic Act 6425, otherwise known as the Dangerous Drug Act of 1972, as amended of providing funds therefore and for other purposes. So the following provisions of comprehensive dangerous drugs in the Act of 2002 is the use of control the restricted drugs, like example of the Punishable Act penalty range. Example, Section 1. In Section 1, we have the Punishable Act importation of dangerous drugs and all control of precursors and essential chemicals. So what is the penalty rates? Life imprisonment to death and fine of 500,000 pesos regardless of the quantity and purity involved. In Section 5, sale, trading, administration, delivery, and transportation of dangerous drugs and controlled precursors and essential chemical. So the penalty range is life imprisonment or death and fine ranging from 500,000 pesos to 10 million pesos. In Section 7, in punishable act, employees and visitors of an den, drive, or resort with dangerous drug. In the penalty range, life imprisonment ranging from 12 years and 1 day to 20 years in fine ranging from 100,000 pesos up to 10 million pesos. In Section 8, manufacturing of dangerous drugs and all controlled of precursors and essential chemicals, the penalty rate is life imprisonment ranging from 12 years and 1 day and to 20 years and a fine of ranging from 100,000 pesos to 10 million pesos. In Section 11, possession and dangerous drug, example 10 grams of more of opium, 10 grams of more morphine, 10 grams of more heroin, 10 grams of more cocaine or hydrochloride, 10 grams of more of methamphetamine or shabu, 10 grams of more of marijuana, 10 grams of more of other dangerous drugs such as ecstasy. So the penalty range, life imprisonment to death and fine ranging from 500,000 pesos up to 10 million pesos. In Section 13, possession of dangerous drugs during the parties, social gathering or meetings, or an approximate of company of at least 2 persons. The penalty range is maximum penalties provided for a Section 11 of this act regardless of the quantity and the purity of such dangerous drugs. While the Section 15, use of dangerous drugs, number 1, if found positive for use of any dangerous drugs after the confirmatory test. First defense or offense, 6 months of rehabilitation in government center subject to the provision of Article 3. Second offense, imprisonment ranging from 6 years and 1 day to 12 years and fine ranging from 50,000 to 200,000. Number 2, if the user is caught with other dangerous drug, the provision of Section 11 will be imposed. So take note of that, the Republic Act 9165. So are you aware of that, students? It may be aware for that cases of Republic Act regarding the drugs, you have to give your right decision. Before I leave, I give you some thoughts. Get high on grades, not on drugs by Prince Coates. That's all for today, and that's the end of my lessons. My name is Rinaldo B. Malimban, your MAPEH 9.